Chapter 1: The unmasking of a childhood. Before these words echo through the digital ether, before the truth I'm about to unleash shatters the carefully constructed illusions, I ask you, are you ready? Are you truly prepared to witness the tearing down of a century of lies? If your spirit yearns for unvarnished truth, if your heart aches for justice, then subscribe to Sahel and the World Story. Hit that like button and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts as this story unfolds. Your engagement is the unstoppable force that ensures these words cannot be silenced. Now, let the unmasking begin. The air crackled, thick with the silent judgment of cameras and the whispered disdain of those who called me names. Young military junta leader, dangerous radical, anti-Western dictator. They tried to define me, to cage my narrative within their fabricated labels. But today, I stand before you, not as their caricature, but as truth itself. And this time, they cannot turn off the microphones. This time, their cameras cannot swivel away. This time, their editors cannot excise my words from the footage, because the world they monopolized no longer exists. Because millions will hear these words now, unfiltered, unmuttered by their distortions, untouched by their lies. I am 34 years old. 34 years of breathing, living, and growing up with their lies. Every day, as a child, Africa flickered across television screens in my home, in my village, in the few places we had access to the outside world. And always, it was the same suffocating images. Children with distended bellies, FLIs crawling on their faces, dry, cracked lands stretching to a merciless horizon. The glint of weapons, the cold, stark reality of death. This is Africa, they told us. This is what Africa is, and we believed it. How could we not? It was all we were shown. We learned to be ashamed. Ashamed of ourselves, ashamed of our lush, vibrant lands, ashamed of our own resilient people. We swallowed the bitter pill of their narrative, allowing it to define us, to diminish us in our own eyes. But then, the quiet rebellion began. I grew up. I read, not just the books they approved, but the forbidden histories, the whispered truths, the forgotten scrolls. I researched, digging relentlessly through layers of propaganda to find the bedrock of reality. And I questioned. Every image, every headline, every narrative became a target for my relentless inquiry. It was a slow, painful awakening, like shedding layers of old, heavy skin. And eventually, I understood the Africa they showed us wasn't real. It was a phantom, a construct, a deliberate distortion designed to serve a singular, sinister purpose. The story they told us was a lie, a meticulously crafted, decades-old deception. The fate they imposed upon us wasn't destiny. It was a script they had written for years, a role they had forced us to play in their grand, exploitative drama. How, then, have they portrayed Africa? How have they shown it to the world? How have they sold it to their viewers? As if we were creatures who had no share of humanity. As if we were savages, forever left outside the hallowed halls of civilization. As if we were wretches, eternally waiting for them to descend from their enlightened heights to save us. Every day, every hour, every minute, the same story plays. On their screens, hunger, war, disease, corruption, terror, chaos. These are the only words, it seems, that come to mind when Africa is mentioned in their media. In their Africa dictionary, there are no other words. No hope, no success, no development, no resistance, no honor, no pride, no victory. This manufactured reality, this grotesque caricature, has been their weapon. And today, I am taking that weapon from their hands. Let us delve deeper into their deception, into the carefully curated narrative they have fed the world. In their so-called Africa dictionary, a lexicon of lies crafted for mass consumption, there are only a handful of entries. What words come to mind when Africa is mentioned in their esteemed publications, on their primetime news reports? Hunger, war, disease, corruption, terror, chaos. These are the echoes of their editorial boardrooms, the repeated phrases whispered into every microphone, splashed across every front page. These are the sole adjectives permitted to describe a continent of staggering diversity, unimaginable wealth, and profound resilience. But where, I ask you, are the other words? Where is the entry for hope? Where is success, development, resistance, honor, pride, victory? In their Africa dictionary, these words are conspicuously absent, erased from the public consciousness as if they never existed. This isn't an oversight. It is a deliberate, calculated omission. It is the very foundation of the fabricated. fable they have sold to their viewers, to their readers, to the world.so. I turn my gaze directly to you, New York Times. To you, Washington Post. To you, Guardian. To you, Ellie Mand. Have you ever, in your extensive and self-proclaimed authoritative coverage, made Africa's successes your headlines? How many times have your investigative journalists truly delved into Rwanda's technology miracle, a nation rising from unimaginable tragedy to become a beacon of innovation? How many times have you shown the world Ethiopia's breathtaking reforestation project, a monumental effort that is literally transforming deserts into vibrant ecosystems? How many times have you praised Botswana's democratic success, a stable, prosperous, and truly democratic nation in a region you so often portray as fractured and failing? How many times have you meticulously described Kenya's entrepreneurial ecosystem, a hub of innovation and vibrant economic activity? No, you have not. And the reason is chillingly simple: these narratives don't fit your PRE-determined scenario. Your Africa cannot be successful. It cannot be self-sufficient. For if it were, then how, tell me, would you legitimize your relentless exploitation? If Africa is not perpetually in need of your aid, a term they use to mask their continued plundering, how will you intervene, militarily, economically, politically, in our sovereign affairs? If Africa is not forever backward, how will you maintain your arrogant posture, looking down on us from your self-appointed perch of superiority? Your entire framework of intervention, of saving us, collapses the moment Africa stands tall and independent, demonstrating its own capacity for growth and self-determination. Have you ever asked yourselves, truly, deeply asked, has any editor sitting at their desk, any news director in a high-stakes meeting, any columnist at their keyboard, ever paused to consider this profound truth? Why are the people of the world's richest lands poor? It is the question they dare not voice, the paradox they desperately seek to obscure. Because the answer dismantles their entire edifice of lies. They portray our poverty as inherent, as a natural consequence of our supposed savagery or mismanagement. But the true question is not why Africa is poor, but how Africa was kept poor, systematically impoverished, while being so extraordinarily, incomparably rich. This question, this critical inquiry, is the chisel that will chip away at their fabricated fable, revealing the brutal, naked truth beneath. Now, let us confront the most glaring, most damning paradox that their fabricated fable desperately tries to conceal. They paint Africa as impoverished, as a continent perpetually holding out its hand for aid. But allow me to present you with real numbers, undeniable facts that shatter this illusion. Africa, the continent they brand as destitute, owns 70% of the world's cobalt reserves. Your sleek cell phone, your powerful computer, your supposedly eco-friendly electric car, none of them function without cobalt. This cobalt flows from the Democratic Republic of Congo, a nation whose people often cannot afford the very devices powered by their stolen wealth. Africa holds 90% of the world's platinum reserves. Catalytic converters, essential electronic devices, life-saving medical implants, they all demand platinum. This precious metal originates from the heart of South Africa, yet its own people are crushed by crippling unemployment, their dignity eroded while their land's rich as fuel. Distant economies. Africa provides 30% of the world's gold production. Gold flows like shimmering rivers from our lands Mali, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Tanzania, yet our people swim not in prosperity, but in the bitter waters of poverty. Africa's supplies are staggering. 65% of the world's diamond production. Botswana, Angola, Congo, Sierra Leone, billions of dollars worth of diamonds are extracted, brilliant and sparkling, only to leave our miners living on a mere $1 a day, their lives reflecting the grim facets of their exploited labor. And then there is uranium. Africa owns 35% of the world's uranium reserves from Niger, Namibia, South Africa. Nuclear plants across your developed world hum with power, Paris lights burn brightly, fueled by our uranium, yet our villages, the very source of this energy, remain plunged in darkness, without electricity. So, I ask you again, do you still wonder why Africa is poor? No, the right question, the only honest question, is how Africa was kept poor while being so extraordinarily, incomparably rich. Here then is your answer: colonialism didn't end. It simply changed shape. You used to come and occupy our lands. with military might. Now, you arrive disguised as investors, establishing companies. You used to take by force, seizing our resources with brute power. Now, you concoct agreements, intricately woven contracts designed to legally justify your plunder. You used to rule with the whip, with overt oppression. Now, you rule with credit, with debt traps, with economic chains that bind us far more effectively than any physical shackle. Let me give you concrete examples, with numbers, with names, with dates, the very details you will never, ever write about. Take Gleaner, the Swiss-based mining giant extracting cobalt in Congo. In 2022, their revenue was an astronomical $256 billion. The tax paid to Congo? A paltry $500 million. That's 0.2%. Is this justice? I leave that for the world to judge. Consider Rio Tinto, the British-Australian mining behemoth extracting bauxite in Guinea 20 million tonnes annually. What is left? For Guinea, environmental pollution and the insidious spread of cancer. Look at Total, now Total Energies, the French oil giant relentlessly extracting oil in Angola, Nigeria, Congo. Their 2022 profit, a staggering $36 billion. Their investment in Africa, dirty pipelines, infrastructure of extraction, not of development. And Anglo-American, founded in South Africa but now headquartered in London, taking everything diamonds. Platinum, iron. What did they leave behind in South Africa? 6 million unemployed miners. And these, my friends, are just the tip of the iceberg. What about the invisible plunder, the secret deals, the offshore accounts, the transfer pricing tricks that bleed our economies dry? Every year, $88 billion in illegal money flows out of Africa. Who writes about this? Yet every year, $4 billion in aid comes to Africa, and everyone writes about that. No one dares to state the truth. Africa is not the continent receiving aid. It is the continent giving aid. While you zoom your cameras on swollen bellies, on the manufactured images of perpetual crisis, there is a monstrous system, a colossal mechanism of plunder, working silently in the background. Every single day. Tons of gold, diamonds, cobalt, uranium, and oil leave our lands. But how? How does this continuous hemorrhage of wealth occur, unseen by the world, uncommented upon by your vaunted press? Here then is the system, laid bare for all to see. Step 1. They create corruption. They bribe our leaders, dangling promises of luxury, opening offshore accounts where stolen wealth can vanish without a trace. They send their children to your elite schools, indoctrinating them into a worldview that aligns with the exploiters, severing their ties to their own people. Step 2. They make deals. Not fair exchanges, but predatory agreements, 50-year concessions, 99-year concessions, effectively turning our lands into their private fiefdoms for generations. They demand tax exemptions, ensuring that the vast profits they extract remain untouched by our national treasuries. They become exempt from environmental rules, leaving behind toxic scars that poison our water and land. They ignore labor rights, turning our people into cheap, disposable resources. Step 3. They control the infrastructure. They take over our ports, our airports, our railways. But observe closely, they only build and control the arteries that led from the mine to the harbour. They do not build roads to our villages. They do not bring electricity to our schools. Their infrastructure serves only the flow of our resources out, not the development of our people within. Step 4. They provide security. They set up private security companies, armed to the teeth, effectively becoming parallel armies. They then declare any legitimate protest, any righteous uprising against their exploitation, as terrorism, justifying their brutal suppression. Step 5. They silence the media. They buy local journalists, turning them into mouthpieces for the narrative of the oppressors. They suppress opposing voices, ensuring that no genuine African perspective can reach a wider audience. And they feed news of internal unrest, their manufactured chaos, directly to international media, reinforcing the very stereotypes they profit from. This is how the system works. It has been working like this for 100 years, meticulously, ruthlessly. And you, the self-proclaimed bastions of truth and independent journalism, do not see this system. Or rather, you do not want to see it because you are part of the system too. Who are the biggest advertisers of the New York Times, CNN, BBC? Oil companies, mining companies, arms companies, pharmaceutical cartels, the very corporations that exploit Africa. You live on their money. You defend their interests. Your news is a curated spectacle designed to protect the status quo of plunder, and what I am about to tell you might cost me my life. But it is no longer time to be silent. France's system in Africa is the CFA franc. 14 African countries are still shackled to this French colonial currency. 50% of these countries' central bank reserves sit in the French treasury. France applies negative interest to this money, meaning we pay France to use our own money. Through this insidious system, France transfers $500 billion worth of resources from Africa every year. Does anyone write about this? No, but when France doles out a mere 10 billion euros in aid to Africa, it makes global headlines, a grand gesture of supposed benevolence. Britain's system is more sophisticated, more shadowy. London is the world's money laundering centre. The City of London, an offshore paradise. Every single penny stolen from Africa, every ill-gotten gain, every illicit flow of wealth passes through London. Jersey, Guernsey, the Cayman Islands, the Virgin Islands, all under British control. Africa's wealth hides there, untaxed, untraced, fueling the prosperity of its colonizers. America's system is AFRICOM, the United States Africa Command. 46 military bases scattered across our continent. Their official purpose? Security. Their real purpose? Resource control. Drones buzz in our airspace every day. Listening devices are everywhere. They claim to be fighting terrorism, but it is not terrorists who are targeted. It is people's leaders who dare to challenge their hegemony. China is the new player, they say, offering win-win partnerships. They build infrastructure, they give credit, but in exchange for what? 99-year port concessions, granting them strategic control. Mining rights that mirror the exploitation of the past. Agricultural lands surrendered. It is debt-trap diplomacy, plain and simple. Ask Sri Lanka. Ask Zambia. And you, the corporate press, write about none of this. Why? Because you are not a free press. You are a corporate press. Your bosses are billionaires. Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post. Why? For love of journalism or for control of narrative. Rupert Murdoch's media empire, Fox News, Wall Street Journal, The Sun, The Times, all from the same hand, all giving the same message. West is good, others are bad. Carlos Slim, a Mexican billionaire whose wealth derives from monopolized telecommunications, grew rich off Latin America's back and now controls America's most respected newspaper, the New York Times. And you claim to do independent journalism? Who are your editors? Which schools did they graduate from? Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge. Always the same elite schools. Always the same worldview. Always the same prejudices. How are your reporters selected? How many languages does your Africa correspondent speak? French, English, that's all. Swahili, Hausa, Yoruba. No, the time for silence is over. The time for truth has arrived. This is not just a story. It is a battle for the narrative of a continent. If these truths resonate, if they ignite a spark of understanding within you, then help us amplify this message. Like this chapter, share it widely across all your platforms, comment with your insights, and if you haven't already, subscribe to Sahel and the World Story to join the movement that cannot be silenced. Together, we can break the chains of silence and illuminate the path to a truly free and equitable world.